consulting firm. We have close to about 300,000 people working globally. In sports advisory is one of the areas that we provide service actually. So I'm also a pretty active sportsman. I play football 3 times a day. So that keeps me connected with sports in a way actually. So the topic that we're going to discuss is the athlete support system, or what you call as wider sports support system. So we had athletes come in and address us today, but one of the backbone of it is how the ecosystem around sports medicine, physiotherapy, mental conditioning, nutrition, that works. So to discuss about it, I have a very highly esteemed panel, so I'll invite each of them to the stage and we'll hear from them. One important part is, I think Rohan Bopanna, you all know, he recently won the Australian Open doubles. What age? Any guess? 43, he won the Australian Open. And that, when he was at the Sportstar Conclave in Mumbai about 2 weeks back, he was talking about the support system of nutrition, mental conditioning, physical, all those aspects. So I think it is these days for sports to succeed or teams to succeed, you need that environment. So that is the main thing. So we have a very esteemed panel. I'll call each of them one by one. I'll introduce and then they will join me here. First I have, let me put my specs on. First I have Dr. Amit Bhattacharjee. He is a noted mental coach who is employed as a research officer at the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine and Research here. And he uses scientific techniques for mental conditioning. He uses computer science and all that for mental conditioning. More important, he was Olympic gold medalist Abhinav Bindra's personal trainer for almost 10 years. So we have to give a big hand for him. Not just that, he has also trained Mohan Bagan, Sail Football, East Bengal side. So he has been associated with team as well. So that is what, nowadays he works with special kids to realize their full potential. So I don't know, he has also stepped out, is it? So, so when he comes on, I'll welcome him. Then we have Vijay Sharma. Vijay Sharma has been the national weightlifting coach since 2012. He has helped India win 7 medals, including a gold in the national championship, mostly competing in the 94 kilogram category. He has remained a mentor of Olympic silver medalist Mirabai Chanu, right from the days of initial days itself. So I welcome Vijay sir onto the stage. Yeah. Next, I want to introduce, sir, please come. So next I have John Gloster. John and we were conversing today. He is from Australia. So one thing I wanted to understand from him is how do we India beat Australia in finals and all that. But at a wider level, he's in India for last 19 years. He's a resident of India. He's based out of Mumbai. And he's a sports physiotherapist and medical coordinator. He has worked with the Indian cricket team and also now working with Rajasthan Royals. So that's where he's employed. He's got amazing knowledge around the whole of the physical conditioning, physiotherapy. So welcome, John. And I also wanted to introduce Tvisha Parikh. Tvisha is a sports and medicine, medical doctor in the medicine department of Reliance Foundation. She completed her MBBS from TN Medical College, Nair Hospital in Mumbai, then completed a master in sports and exercise medicine from the University of Glasgow, a PhD in sports medicine. She's also yoga certified, so she combines both the sports medicine and yoga as an area. She has received multiple sports medicine training at renowned centers in Cape Town, Cleveland, USA, across multiple places. So welcome, Tvisha, as well. So just to kickstart the whole discussion, so I gave the context in terms of the importance of athlete support system, but maybe I'll start with Dr. Amit. He has been associated with Abhinav Bindra for the last, for about 5 Olympics. So Abhinav Bindra, we all know the first individual Olympics in 2008. But even before that, he had to go through a couple of Olympics where he didn't win the medal, but 2008, first individual medal. So it'll be good to understand the journey that you had with him to make him success, initial failure, success, and what you did from a mental conditioning aspect. So over to you, sir, in terms of just explaining your journey with him.
Okay, to start with, basically, Abhinav called me Ellie, a friend, a punching box, a sounding board. So the basic thing which is very important in the life of a sports person is to develop the relationship with the coach, to develop his understanding where he is helpful. As Avneet, Modgil, everybody was saying here, the shooting which stand 20 years back, it is in the same area. There are certain changes which happen. I will speak about it later on. So let's start with the first thing. 2004 was an eye-opener for us. 2004, we reached final in 3rd position. And in the final, we lost and we went back to the 7th position. And that was the eye-opening for us. So every method, every technology, everything which we used, everything failed. So we start very fresh again. We work on every minute aspect of mental training. We work on every minute aspect of this technical training, every minute aspect of the environmental part. We work on the jacket, we work on the shoes, we work on the darkroom shooting, we work on the samadhi tank and everything. So at that point of time, we developed a therapy which is called dead man therapy. And 2006 was the first when the world championship was there. And we win the world championship. We become the gold medalist. So then again, one challenge came in the front. Everybody say it is the peak which you have attained. So again, we understand the word peak is not actually for the shooters. It is just a start limit. And there we started another part of the journey that is called how to work with the second part of the brain that is called the frontal lobe of the brain. And that part is related to the language section. And I still remember in 2004, there was a complaint that there's something wrong with the pellets, there's something wrong with the floor. So some ghost was haunting us. So we got prepared with what is called hazard management, and which is related to the human frontal lobe part. So this hazard management is something which helped us, in 2008 Olympics. When Abhinav started his final, he shot the first shot, which is 4. Then second shot, 4.2, which is terrible. Even an initial shooter can't shoot like that. But this dead man therapy and the other aspect of the hazard management, it really helped. तो उससे हमने क्या किया कि जब अभिनव के दिमाग में एक बिलीफ सिस्टम डाला गया था, जो एक डेड मैन थेरेपी का पार्ट है, that belief system was कि you will shoot, I won't open the secret now, I will discuss it later on. And the first shot he shot was 10, and the final shot, he shot 10.8. He was in the final with a less score than Athens Olympic. In Athens, he shot 597, and here he was in 596. And 596, he and Moldvino, they were tied up in 3rd and 4th position. And the second position was with Zukanen, former champion, world Olympic champion, and the first position was Henry. So from 596 to go up, it was a very big challenge, but everything worked very good. And I always believe that if there is a good support system by the friend coaches and a mental training system which is with the players who are from the, जो हमारे Indian taste के लिए है, एक foreign coach, एक foreign trainer, बहुत अच्छा है, ठीक है, सब कुछ ठीक है, but जो एक Indian उस चीज को समझ सकता है, because there are people who doesn't understand कि what is neurofeedback, they doesn't understand what is neurotransmitter, they doesn't understand कि what are SSRIs, what is dopamine, ठीक है? So एक ऐसा सिस्टम चाहिए जो उनको इस चीज़ के लिए समझा सके, and they can do really very well. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. So, Vijay sir, over to you.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Sharma. You have done a wonderful job with Mirabai Chanu, everybody knows. उसमें कोच का इम्पोर्टेंस, कोच का रोल उस दिन, कंपटीशन के दिन कितना होता है? क्या आप पे भी उतना ही ऑब्वियसली प्रेशर तो होता ही है, तो एक दिन पहले में और कंपटीशन के दिन में क्या फ़र्क होता है?
कंपटीशन किसी भी एलीट प्लेयर के साथ काम करने में जितना प्रेशर प्लेयर के होता है उतना ही प्रेशर कोच के ऊपर भी होता है। हम लोग 2016 में, मैं आपको एक बड़ी अच्छी बात बताता हूँ जिससे रिलेटेड ये आज आपने सेमिनार किया है। 2016 रियो ओलंपिक्स में और मीरा खेलने गए थे, और उससे 3 महीने पहले हम लोग एशियन चैम्पियनशिप खेले थे। हमने वो टोटल किया था जो ओलंपिक्स में सिल्वर मेडल के लिए काफ़ी था, और 3 महीने बाद हम ओलंपिक्स 2016 में फेल कर गए। हम लोग क्लीन एंड जर्क का एक भी अटेम्प्ट पास नहीं कर पाए। तब मुझे मेंटल ट्रेनिंग का वैल्यू पता चली कि कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है मेंटल ट्रेनिंग, साइकोलॉजिस्ट की कितनी इम्पोर्टेंट है टीम के साथ, और एक पूरा सिस्टम चाहिए आपको ओलंपिक मेडल लेने के लिए। उसमें एक साइकोलॉजिस्ट की ज़रूरत है, फिजिकल थेरेपिस्ट की ज़रूरत है, तो एक टीम वर्क है। तो वहाँ मुझे समझ में आया, और हम लोग जब दूसरा ओलंपिक खेलने के लिए गए टोक्यो में, तो हमने जो साइकोलॉजिस्ट की हेल्प ली, साथ में फिजिकल जो थेरेपिस्ट है उसकी हेल्प ली, तो हम बहुत अच्छे से परफॉर्म कर पाए। 2016 के बाद 2017 में वर्ल्ड चैम्पियन बने, और 2021 में हमने ओलंपिक में मेडल लिया। तो हालांकि प्लेयर को जितनी ज़रूरत है एक साइकोलॉजिस्ट की, उतना प्रेशर कोच पे भी रहता है। तो कोचेस को भी ज़रूरत पड़ती है समय समय पे डिस्कशन करने की कि हम लोग प्रेशर को किस तरह से हैंडल करें। हम लोग भी नर्वस हो जाते हैं कि जब आप कंपटीशन करा रहे हैं तो पूरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आपके ऊपर है, कोई भी चीज़ गलत ना हो जाए। तो उस प्रेशर को कैसे हैंडल करना है, काफ़ी कुछ हम भी करते हैं उसको हैंडल करने के लिए। तो एक टीम वर्क है कोई भी मेडल लेना, एक एलीट प्लेयर के साथ काम करना, और उस लेवल पे कुछ भी टारगेट अचीव करना।
Thank you. I think what you're saying is that there needs to be good rapport between the individual and the coach as well, because you're saying the coach is as much under pressure like the player itself. You can't do much. You can't go on to the stage. Thank you very much. So, John, I just wanted to bring you in. You have been associated with high performance team, both the Indian cricket team, which is doing extremely well, and also Rajasthan Royals, IPL, all teams pretty much. So from your journey with these teams, how has physiotherapy, the strength, the conditioning, fitness side evolved over the years? Just give us a perspective on the importance that's given to this at this point of time.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to Hindu and Sportstar. Just quickly, the first magazine that I ever bought when I arrived in India 19 years ago was the Sportstar, off a little roadside stand at Apollo Bunda where I was living at the Taj, and it gave me my first glimpse into sport outside of cricket. I was in India, I was brought to India to work with the Indian cricket team, but that one magazine, which still exists today, amazingly, introduced me to how many other sports there are in India and were being played passionately in India at the time. Even though cricket still dominated the front pages, when you turn into the inside of that magazine, I was quite astounded by the diversity of sport in this country. And when I first came, to answer your question, we tried to look at what is going to take Indian sport on the back of cricket and on the learnings of cricket to the next level and to be more consistent. And it's one thing to have technical talent in any sport, but if you can't match that technical talent with physical capability, then there's always going to be inconsistency in performance. And I think the Indian hockey team, and we all know the story of the Indian hockey team, was probably the most technically gifted team through the generations of the last probably 2 or 3 generations. And that was because they were extremely skilled at one-on-one. But as soon as we brought in the element of fitness, then the Indian hockey started to fail away. And that's because we moved from grass to AstroTurf with the speed of the sport. So we took the learning from that into cricket to say that if we want to be more consistent, and if you look at the inconsistency of the Indian cricket team when I was there in those early 2000s, we'd win a series, we'd lose a series, we'd do okay, but there was never consistency. And I think it's more than coincidence that as soon as we started to bring the support network into cricket, bring fitness to the fore, or fitness as a non-negotiable to the fore, then consistency plays out. And Virat Kohli, for what he's done to Indian sport as a whole, he demonstrated that in order to be consistent, you need to bring fitness to the fore. And fortunately for us as a role model, cricket was then seen as the vehicle for us to spread the message of fitness across all sports. That to be consistent, to stay injury-free, and to stay performing. We use the term longevity now in sport. To have longevity in your sport, then you've got to bring this understanding that, and I'm not just talking about fitness as in being stronger and more durable there. Fitness incorporates everything from nutrition to mental conditioning support and high performance support there, internal medicine, and then we look at the S&C separately as a separate pillar as well. So collectively, building out that ecosystem is what has allowed not just Indian cricket now to stay at the top of their game and be consistently number one, number two in the world, but now for other sports in India to learn from that and demonstrate that if we bring all of that ecosystem of support to other athletes and other teams, then we are going to keep pushing ahead onto the podiums of international sport.
Thanks, John. I think Indian cricket team introduced yo-yo test at some point of time, and it's controversial in some way to say, yeah, can everybody kind of participate? But it put the threshold and then made sure that best of breed, everybody plays to a different standard, which is happening right now. You said Virat Kohli was instrumental in doing it.
Yeah, look, that's the one piece of it, but we always talk about technology, we talk about data, we talk about collecting information from our players and then making decisions on the back of that. But we often miss some of the really important things that Sir was just talking about there, which is the other side of sport, which is the mental side of sport, what we call the intangibles. And the greatest story of all is the Tom Brady story, the greatest footballer of all time, 6-time Super Bowl winner. He was picked 199th out of 200 in his first draft, nearly missed the cut because they were only picking players on physical data. And they weren't taking into account probably the most important thing, which is what we call the shoulders up component of sport. And they nearly lost the greatest athlete of all time out of sport. So it's so important for us to remember to what I call stitch the top and the bottom together. And that's where these gentlemen, this group here are very, very good at. Is it's one thing to consider the physical, and we've talked a lot about physical consistency being a prime mover in success, but it's going nowhere if we don't allow the body to talk to the brain and the brain to talk to the body. So the focus has to come back to delivering on the shoulders up mental conditioning approach to sport as well.
Thank you, John. So I'll move over to Tvisha. Hope I get your pronunciation. I'm just trying again and again. But see, I had a patella surgery in 2020, and it broke while playing football at the ground itself. And I went to Manipal, had an operation, and the same year I had to do one more operation to take the wire out. And then I saw sports medicine as an area in there. And I met the doctor, and I continued to take support from them. And now, can you demystify sports medicine? Because that is more preventative. I have gone for a cure, but it is also preventative these days in a wider sports side. So would you just want to explain what is sports medicine? What are the components of it for all of us, actually? Thank you.
At the outset, thank you to Hindu for this invitation. So sports medicine, whenever somebody hears the term, the first thing that strikes to them is an injured player on the field and somebody attending to them. So we've always, it's common to associate sports medicine with just an injury which has happened and cure of that. But actually that is, it goes much beyond that. That's sports injury, but medicine means just looking at the whole aspect, everything else, health-wise altogether for the athlete. And that would include everything that has just been discussed, including the mental health, the nutrition, which is very important. And when we talk of health, health and medicine are again slightly different. So it's also looking at, sports medicine looks at the general health of an athlete, which means we are looking at also prevention. So especially when we're talking of elite sports, once the athlete is going for a competition and he or she falls sick and then we attend to him or her, we have already lost out some time, which is very crucial when somebody is traveling to an Olympics village or for any championship. So what we need to do with these athletes is ensure that they actually don't fall sick, they don't get hurt, all of these. So that's where the sports medicine gambit is really big, because we look at everything from prevention to treatment. And within both these prevention and treatment aspects, it's attending to preventive nutrition, preventive psychology, preventive medicine, and also treating all of these. So when we talk of prevention, it means, for example, I'm from Reliance Foundation, and what we do is whenever an athlete comes into our system, we actually take them through an entire health check. So again, I'm saying not medical check, but a health check. So they undergo everything from blood tests to scans of, the heart, etc., nutritional scans, analyzing their body fat, body muscle. They also undergo a basic psychometric evaluation to see that, where are they, how can they, what is their coping strategy for stress, are they able to manage stress just now. So all of these things are evaluated as a baseline. Of course, if any complaints are there, they are attended to. But when we look at this as a baseline, and then we are managing this athlete, even before the athlete actually gets injured, we can identify that, okay, this particular blood level was off, so he's likely to feel more tired. He's likely to, susceptible to a fracture. So we can identify that. Of course, we have to put 3-4 things together, and there is a good chance that the athlete will not actually get a fracture, but this is on the basis of science. We can say that he has what we call risk factors. Problem. Medical science has evolved enough that if there is a problem, we can definitely treat it. But like I said, there's time lost, and when we are talking of elite sports, there's no way we can lose time. That's the big thing. If somebody gets an injury, physiotherapists are there of very high quality who can fix them, and they can go back into playing in the next 5 minutes. But why do we even want to probably reach that level? So we're talking prevention. We identify, sports medicine has identified certain injuries which happen very commonly. So for example, certain type of injuries happen commonly in footballers. So there are preventive programs which are taught to them, which are incorporated as part of their daily routine, so that they strengthen certain muscles, etc., so that this would not happen at all in the future.
Thank you. So I just want the audience to be prepared with any question, but before that, I want to just go back to Amit sir. Just one thing, you worked with Abhinav Bindra, but you also worked with teams, like football team. So what is mental conditioning in individual versus a team? What is the broad difference in that? Because you get the team psyche together to win something. So it'll be interesting to hear that.
प्रशांत ने ना मुझे एक बड़ा उसमें डाल दिया कि 5 मिनट में कंपाइल कर दो अपनी 25 साल की जर्नी, तो मुझे पता ही नहीं कहाँ से स्टार्ट करूँ, कहाँ से एंड करूँ. But I must say one thing. Hindu, the most democratic newspaper who was covering the Indian sports, first thing they should start, okay, physio, medicine, everything I understand. It was there, it will be there. Emergency mental training setup. Just think of a person who is working hard for 10 years and something happened to him in the final and he's out. Shooting is a merciless sport. One shot here and there, you are gone. Your 4 years, what you have spent to reach the podium is finished. What happened to that sportsman? How what kind of quality of training you give after that? So this setup should be very important. It should be there everywhere, how to work on those aspects. What type of, the anxiety, depression, stress they go, and how it is carried. Like in 2004, when Abhinav was, we are actually shattered, It was like from 3rd position to 7th position. We lost the medal. But how we really come up very well. We have gone through a policy, we've gone through each and every aspect of mental part, technical part, and we got the first gold in 2008. In between 2006, we become the world champion. So this part is very important. Second, as he was telling about the team event, recently this Minerva win, then Mohun Bagan say the East Bengal has lost 3 times, So their coach, Subhash Bhumi, called me. Yes, sir, if we lost this time, we are finished. So the strategy for the team event is entirely different. It is like the method of training is entirely different. The individual training is entirely different. The team training, you know, recently the girl, Ojaswani, I must name, she's 10 years old girl, she win golf, this Asian Championship. Anupama Upadhyay in badminton, if anybody is from badminton, she played with PV Sindhu. They are all trained by me. But you know, the training method for them is entirely different from the training method of team. Team training method uses a consent mechanism system in which every player, like at that time Shuil Khatri, who is now playing with, you know, some high football, this thing, then Shubhra Pal, every people were there. So we work with them in a different aspect. You know, those aspect, those training techniques of mental training should be adopted by the big giants who are coming up into this field. And I think that will help the Indian system, that will help the Indian sportsman, that will help the Indian sports to go very high. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you want to?
शर्मा जी, इतनी देर से हम बैठे हैं, हम यही सुन रहे हैं, फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट, मेंटल कोचिंग, यू नो ऑल द स्पोर्ट्स साइंस, फिजियोथेरेपी, तो जो उसमें जो ट्रेडिशनल जो कोच था, जो जिसको ये सब नहीं आता है, आपको अगर ये नहीं आता है तो उसकी जगह है कि नहीं आज के उसमें, या आपको भी ये सब इस सब के साथ आपको सीखना पड़ेगा एंड यू हैव टू कीप पेस?
नहीं, डेफिनेटली, जैसे मैंने अभी आपको बताया, 2016 में हमारी इंडियन टीम में फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट, मेंटल ट्रेनर, डॉक्टर, तो इस टाइप की कोई चीज़ नहीं थी जिसका खामियाजा हमने भुगता और देश ने भी भुगता मेडल खो के। उसके बाद में हमें पता चला कि ये चीज़ें कितनी इम्पोर्टेंट हैं। 2021-20 टोक्यो ओलंपिक के लिए हम मैडम की हमने पूरी हेल्प ली। ऐसे ही फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट, मतलब एक टीम वर्क है, हर आदमी का एक इम्पोर्टेंट प्लेस है मेडल लेने के लिए, सबकी अपनी अपनी ज़रूरत है, अहमियत है, और एक टीम के साथ ही हम कोई भी गोल अचीव कर सकते हैं।
तो आपका रोल क्या रह जाता है एथलीट के साथ?
जैसे मैं कह रहा हूँ ना, हर आदमी का एक अपना रोल है, और बीइंग ए कोच उसका अपना एक रोल है, ट्रेनिंग कराना, ट्रेनिंग का लोड कैलकुलेट करना, ट्रेनिंग टेक्निक देखना। लेकिन मैं ये नहीं कहूँगा कि कोच का रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है और फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट का नहीं है, या डॉक्टर का नहीं है, मेंटल ट्रेनर का नहीं है। एक टीम वर्क है, सबका रोल एक उतना इम्पोर्टेंट है जहाँ जहाँ उनकी ज़रूरत है।
एक बात बोलना चाहूँगा आपको, कोच बैकबोन है। मेंटल ट्रेनिंग का जो एस्पेक्ट है, अगर आप किसी से पूछो स्पोर्ट्स में, मेरे को लगता 3 से 4% है। यू नो रेस्ट एवरीथिंग कम्स टुगेदर। मैं इस चीज़ में क्यों फोकस कर रहा हूँ, हमें जो गोल्ड एक ही मिला है, इंडिविजुअल गोल्ड जो मिला है, उसमें इसका रोल बहुत मेजर रहा है। हम एज ए डॉक्टर PGI में रह करके हम इतना आगे आ नहीं पाते हैं, टाइम नहीं होता है, यू नो, सो मच। बट जब हम इतने बड़े प्लेटफॉर्म को देख रहे हैं, तो कोच का रोल तो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, फिजियो का रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, इनका रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। बट जो 4 to 5% है, उसमें भी इन लोगों को ही रोल प्ले करना पड़ता है। दे हैज टू बिकम ए मेंटल ट्रेनर। सो मेंटल ट्रेनर के लिए 1% जगह रह जाती है। यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट आई वांट टू से? सो पर मेंटल ट्रेनिंग का जो बेसिक कंसेप्ट है, जो यू नो द US इज यूजिंग, द चाइनीज आर यूजिंग, जो उनके सेपरेट सिस्टम, वो एक स्टेट में लाना, वहाँ क्रिएट करना, इट्स अ वेरी डिफिकल्ट एरिया, यू नो। सो जापान में हमने देखा, हमारे शूटर्स बोलना नहीं चाहिए, कुछ भी नहीं कर पाए हम लोग, जबकि हमारे पास बहुत ही अच्छा एक प्लेटफॉर्म था कुछ करने के लिए। सो उस प्लेटफॉर्म से अब हमारे पास शूटर्स, दे आर नाउ ट्रेनिंग ऑन दैट एरिया।
Thank you. John, just to take up another topic, and Australia is pretty much known as a sporting nation, and you come from there. You initially, what do they emphasize at school and college level, which probably India can do? And I know you're trying to replicate in high performance team, but what can India do from that? What have you kind of learned from that? And
I think we'll take a step back, and it was really interesting. The sports minister who was here earlier, my Punjab is really poor, but one thing I did pick up from him was he mentioned bacha. He was talking about kids the whole time, and consistently, and it was a consistent theme through the previous panel as well, around children. And I think the question we've got to ask here is, why is it, which is different to particularly Australia, is why is it that in India, between 15 years and 18 years, we lose 82% of our competitive athletes from the system? So kids are falling out of the system, and they're falling out of the system because they lack support. And all the things we're talking about here is the support that they require, particularly injury support, medical and mental health support. So if we can find a way, we talked about broadening and one of the reasons why Australia has a certain amount of success and continued success is because they have an enormously broad base of their pyramid, their sporting pyramid, which was alluded to by the previous gentleman. And what that means is that if you've got more kids coming in at the bottom that are skilled, and when I mean skilled, I don't necessarily mean technically skilled, I mean skilled in the basics, which is physical literacy and motor competence. And they're the two words you'll hear me use a lot. If kids are brought into the bottom of the pyramid through a robust physical education system, and they are skilled in physical literacy and motor competence, then you have more kids coming out the top that are going to play sport. And that is probably the primary reason. One of the other reasons is also a lot of children, and that's why particularly up north here, they're a lot more robust, is because they play a lot more contact sports as kids. They're exposed physically to physical pain. And being exposed to physical pain as an athlete is critical at a very young age, because you then identify what is good pain versus bad pain, and that's the start of your resilience journey. And there's better people to talk about resilience journeys than me here. But all of these things come together, but they're all learnt in the playground. They're all learnt in the parks, where the kids are competing through play initially, and then that transforms into a sporting competition. But what we need to do is maintain this support structure around those kids as they embrace a sport first, and then as they mature into adolescence moving forward. That is the piece that we've got to get right here, and that's the piece that I think is going to transform us from a nation that wants to bid for the Olympics to a nation that will get the Olympics. And 2036 is 13 years down the track. So what do we need to do now? What we have to do now is ask the question, who is our audience in 13 years' time? Both from the athlete's perspective as well as our literal audience. And it's the 10-year-olds now. It's the 8, 9, 10-year-olds now who are going to be our 22, 23-year-old athletes competing for medals at that time. So they're the ones that we should be targeting right now, are these kids, skilling them with what I just talked about, embracing them and surrounding them with a support structure, and understanding also that the people that are going to be watching those Olympic Games in India in 2036, who are those people, and how do we target them as well to build this entire ecosystem of support for those kids that will be competing.
Thanks, John. I think you also mentioned when we were discussing in the morning, the pay package that physical education teachers gets in Australia. It's a phenomenal. So a lot of people can go into that as an...
coaching, the coach needs to be held on the highest pinnacle, because without the coach, there's no athlete. And without a coaching structure and a coach education system in place, then there's no athletes being supported. So the coach in Australia is held in the highest esteem, particularly in the sports education space. There's some of the highest paid teachers in the education system in Australia are the physical education teachers, because they alone are the ones that impact on that child more than any other person collectively in the entire teaching fraternity at a institution. They'll impact on the outcome socially, physically, mentally, academically, inclusion-wise. So they are put on a pedestal in the Australian education system, and rightly so. And until we start doing that here and appreciating what coaches do and rewarding them, not just commercially, but also through education, upskilling, exposure, international travel, etc., and surrounding that coach with an ecosystem of support, then I think we're always going to fall behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's just one question I had about, it's a controversial one, maybe doping as an area. I think you have been vocal kind of against doping thing, and so how do we nip this in the bud itself in terms of when does your area can do something about it?
Yeah, it's definitely been a menace, and we as an organization, as a person, Reliance Foundation, we are doing a lot from the education aspect, because that's really where it has to be done, and education at every level. So not only at the elite athlete level, but at a little lower level, because probably that's where, you know, we have to sow the seeds of what this is, why, and we've done a lot of research on that on our end with our athletes using WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Agency. They have certain tools like questionnaires. So understanding the knowledge, attitudes of the athletes when it comes to doping. It goes into certain very crucial aspects, not just understanding. When we say education, it's not just what is doping and why it is, but also it's a binary thing, two-way thing, understanding the social aspect, the psychological aspect as to why an athlete wants to do it. So I think it's not just about, so that's where we've invested as Reliance Foundation. You know, we are doing this thing on the, with our athletes and education, so reinforcing at every contact point that we get with them that, you know, why this should not be done, how this can be harmful. And you know, the World Anti-Doping Agency has very clear points as to how, why this should not be done, in the sense like it's not just wrong ethically, etc., but it's, as sports medicine doctors, we also emphasize that it's bad for your health, because most of the drugs in some way impact your health in a bad way as well. So giving this education, because very often athletes, especially when they are young, in our country especially, because a lot of them also come from backgrounds which, you know, they take this up at a young age, they don't have a very high level of education, you know, they're just peers, they just learn it from, they have no idea that this could actually be harmful to their health, you know, their focus is probably just the goal. But that's where it's actually understanding that if their focus is the goal, their goal is getting that medal, then what are the ways you can do it in the right way? And that's again where we come in as, you know, a sports science team, that it's not just strength training, because strength training say has been, you know, fitness training has been there, but no, look at the nutrition, look at medical aspects, look at psychological aspects. Within strength training, look at more scientific ways of doing it. So doing all of this, educating on all these aspects in addition to what are the harmful effects of doping and all of that.
Yeah, that's good actually. So thank you. I open it up to audience. Ayon normally has a question.
There's one aspect of the athlete sport system, that's the chair missing there, is the family support, right? It's so critical in my experience, and I've been around a long time in sport, more than 50 years, as a parent, as a sportsman, as the president of an association. So firstly, the family sport is not recognized, not acknowledged, and it's not understood. Because the mental frame of a child, it's the self-belief is rooted in your childhood and adolescence. That's where you have to start. I give you one tip. My son went on to be a world champion and a 4-time Olympian and many, he's been well honored, the Khel Ratna. But where I thought the criticality was, because I was in sport, and I realized that you've got to start them as a winner, as a belief. So don't introduce him to a competition, even at the school level, till you've prepared him. So when he runs or plays or jumps or shoots or what he does, it's better to set him off on a winning spree. That's where self-belief begins to happen. And then you begin to feel that nature and God intended you to be the best. So it starts from KG upwards. And that is a leadership of belief. That's very important. The second thing critical missing here in this sort of the various pegs is the role of associations. The biggest weakness in Indian sport is non-professional associations, which are running a very professional program called Olympic sport. I'm not referring to cricket. But the Olympic sports, other support system that needs strengthening is the organizational ability of the associations. They're weak. Consequently, our systems are not performing. Thank you.
No, I think
it wasn't a question, sorry.
No.
It was more of a, I just felt that those things need to be focused the next time around.
Yeah. No, I think you're bang on with respect to both the areas. The first area, obviously, what the child learns at home is what they learn and kind of do everywhere. So that's important. When we were looking at the support system, I know the association in India, we can go on and on. Probably BCCI probably works well. Yeah, there are a lot of questions around that. We didn't bring that up as the support system, but it's both are very, very valid, and thank you for bringing that up. So, you had a question? A lot of questions. So,
Can you hear me? I'm fine.
no, but use the mic.
Sorry. Thank you. This is a little bit of a specific question, and I wanted to take it to Vijay sir and Tvisha and John. We speak a lot about athlete support systems. One of the things in India, at least, that's been happening for the last, say, 4 to 5 years for female athletes particularly, is considering their menstrual cycles when you try and decide training or when you try and decide how they're going to figure out their workload management. In your experience, how has that changed with the athletes that you're dealing with? Because we see a lot of papers coming out of Europe where they're considering this as a part of, like you were talking about pain tolerance, John, particularly there in terms of how they can actually take certain periods of training or how intense a training session can be. So can you just tell me about your experience in terms of when you talk to athletes, do they know that that's something that, you know, they have to consider? Is that something they have resources for? And just how that goes?
Yeah, look, I think it's purely on the back of awareness and education, and that's got to be two-way, the education from the athlete's side, from the coach's side, and from the support staff side. And sadly, that awareness or lack of education it was very obvious in the support side in Indian sport. That has significantly changed in the last probably 2 to 5 years that I've seen. And it's coming from individual organizations understanding that if we want to get the best out of our female athletes, we need to understand our female athletes intimately. And often those conversations are very difficult. And certainly through the Go Sports Foundation, who I'm associated with, we have particular programs and education programs that are set up exclusively for these conversations. And so that's at a sort of a platform level within an institution. But again, until we template that and take it across a larger audience, then we're always going to be holding a number of our female athletes back. But you may have more insight onto the strategies around that. But certainly it is an area that we are entirely focused on now for sure.
Yeah, so when I was talking about, you know, the preventive aspects, so when typically we would see a female athlete, we would actually go take them through a questionnaire. So there are set questionnaires in the sports medicine arena, which, you know, you can go through to understand sports, menstrual health, its impact on each other, things like that. So we would take the athletes to that. Again, this is to identify potential problems in future, so not just attending to a problem. When it comes to attending to a problem, it's quite a mixed bag. We actually did a survey. The publication should be out shortly. Set up a kiosk, and we had questionnaires, like a short survey. We surveyed not just the girls, but everybody who came to that. So we had coaches, and most of the coaches were males, and we also had certain male athletes come in. So it was also to raise the awareness. So it was an awareness survey thing. Because coaches tend to be males, so, you know, how much have they realized can this be impacting? Did they even realize? Do they even consider this with their female athletes? So we did a survey around all of this, and from what I vaguely know, yes, it was kind of a mixed bag, but largely people they don't consider it too much. There's been a lot of research which is coming out on, are females more prone to injury at a particular time of the cycle? And I would say the research is kind of ongoing from what I have read. Like it's not clear that no, it's definitely a high risk or it's definitely a low risk. The research is still developing, but a lot of attention is being given on the science side. Females are also becoming aware, but definitely again, because we have in India such a mixed bag of population, and especially in sports like athletics, where they come from a little, not always from a fully educated background, they need a lot more education. They are at times not even aware that they could just take a medication to kill the pain. So yeah, so so that's where contact with a medical professional helps. Not just medical professional, any staff would help. And that's where we would also educate the coaches that, even they should be aware that this is a possibility, because as a coach, they can obviously impact a large group of people. So it's coming up shortly.
Yeah. So I think we have run out of time. Maybe final one question from anybody, pressing question. Yeah.
Hi, my question is to John, or maybe Dr. Bhattacharjee as well. The thing is, when you talk about handling pressure and handling failures, those are different when it comes to an individual sport and a team sport. And John has been part of franchisees that work and tournaments like the IPL, where a lot of pressure is, it's more added to what you normally have with because there's a big money involved, there's a other thing involved. So for say a young, when there have been cases when maybe a 20 or 21-year-old earning huge money, but there's a pressure to perform. So how do you handle that both physically and mentally, to ensure that you handle those pressures and you handle those failures and again come back stronger?
Yeah, it's a really interesting, and one of the reasons why these conversations come up is because we're seeing younger and younger athletes entering our system, which is a good thing, but high-performing athletes at a much younger age now coming in. And so therefore we have a responsibility to support them. At the end of the day, they're still minors, they're still growing, they're still developing mentally, physically, and everything. So one of the key things is environment, and we talk a lot about environments that support and produce high performance sort of outcomes. And so the most important thing you can do for this cohort, this young cohort that's suddenly accelerated into international sport and onto podiums internationally, is surround them with an environment that they know that they're secure in, because most of these failures come on the back of this fear of failure, and for them to appreciate that failure is, as we all know, is an intimate part of sporting success. And it was the great Shane Warne that used to talk a lot about, failure and accepting failure and appreciating that it is part of it, but also knowing that you can't really excel until you know where your failure points are. And he used to tell the great story about going, until you go to the edge of the cliff and fall off the cliff, you actually don't know where the edge is. So you don't know where your failure points are until you experience it. He said, it's okay to fall off, because then now you know where your performance, either physical, mental, whatever performance barrier, you now know where it is and where it exists. So you then can push to that point. Prior to that, you were never able to push to that point because you never knew where it was. But when you do fail, he always said, and you fall off the edge of that cliff, you need somebody, your team, to then catch you when you fall off the cliff and to throw you back up onto the edge of that cliff again. That was the missing ingredient, and that's the piece that these kids need, is that environmental piece, the support piece, your team support piece. And that is why one of the key people now in our international dressing room are the people sitting next to me with these skill sets. So they can build those environments, help us to build those environments of support, appreciating failure as part of sport, and the greatest success stories come out of failure stories. We just heard a beautiful one from Abhinav, and his success was born out of the failure and then the strategy that they built as a team together in order to overcome that failure. So it comes from that internal support, the environments you build, and understanding that the pathway to success is always through failure.
Shayan, what I understand, for a champion, failure is a very small word. Let me ask you a question, very simple, one question. You have a plan A, and your plan A fails. So what is the next step? You go to plan B and plan C? So this is the one thing in mental training, there is no plan B and plan C. It's only the plan A. And for the team and individual, both of them, it is basically the belief system which you have to build in them. And the belief system is something which is so strong, which correlates your mind. There's a difference in brain and mind. Brain is, it's a stone. It's an organ. And mind is something which is taking you away. Perception, the language, So you have to make that player or make that individual or the team understand that it is the mind which is taking you to the sports, not the brain. Thank you very much.
I think fascinating reply. I think.
शर्मा जी लास्ट सवाल. एथलीट का तो प्रेशर सबको मालूम है, बट कोच का क्या प्रेशर होता है? कोच का प्रेशर हम कैसे जानेंगे? कोच का क्या प्रेशर होता है?
कोच का प्रेशर, हेलो, सॉरी, कोच के ऊपर पूरे प्लेयर की पूरे 4 साल की मेहनत कोच के ऊपर होती है कि अगर मैंने कोई गलती की तो प्लेयर की 4 साल की मेहनत खत्म हो जाएगी. तो उससे ज़्यादा प्रेशर क्या हो सकता है कोच के ऊपर, उसको मैनेज करना है. हमें भी जरूरत पड़ती है मेंटल ट्रेनर की, हम भी पूछते हैं कि किस तरीके से बिहेव करें. और ये सच्चाई है, बोलने के लिए नहीं है, मैं सच बोल रहा हूँ. मैं खुद जो मीरा की मुग्धा मैडम है जो साइकोलॉजिस्ट हैं, मैं रेगुलर उनसे कंसल्ट करता हूँ कि मुझे भी डर है कि कहीं मेरे से कोई गलती ना हो जाए, तो मुझको तैयार रहने के लिए क्या क्या करना पड़ता है.
And that's just one point of that is that we talk about support staff who support teams and athletes, all of us. But if you spin those words around, staff support, who is looking after the staff? Because if the staff are failing and they're not supported, then that's going to impact on the athlete. So the new focus for us, particularly Rajasthan Royals, is supporting the staff with whatever they need to ensure that they're growing, learning, protected, supported. Because if we're not and we start to fail, then your athletes start to fail as well. So this support staff concept of who is supporting the staff is something that seriously needs to be considered, particularly in team-based sports.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and maybe you had.
I'll just add to that. In sports psychology, informal sports psychology, there is actually, like, I know when I've seen our sports psychologists do presentations, they say that we're going to have counseling. I mean, like, we have consultations with the athlete, with the coach, and in younger kids, it's with the parents. So because, you know, the parental pressure, etc. So because that is parents actually coaxing them, which is now the trend probably. So they actually have this. And again, within our system, exactly the support that he mentioned. So what we do is we actually do everything from fitness sessions to nutrition and psych sessions. Like we get our staff to just take a small class for all of us also periodically, because to keep everything, you know, it's like an HR training. So to keep everything, so everything from fitness, because we also have to be fit. If there's something happening on the field there, all of us have to be capable to run as well. And we have to watch what we eat also. We cannot ask the athlete to eat something.
Thank you, Tvisha.
No, I think, so there's a very small. I think next time I'm going to ask Sportstar to keep this for 2 hours actually, this discussion. So, but yeah.
A very small question in the sense that there was a talk of what's a coach's role? And there are another 5-6 elements: physiotherapy,
mental. And
for the athlete, especially in this individual sport, who is the real interface with the athlete? Does the athlete have to kind of manage inputs from those 5-6 people? Or it is usually through the prime coach that this travels? Just to clarify.
Oh, okay. I think maybe you...
सर ये कोच की ही रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. कोच को देखना है कि कब प्लेयर को किस सपोर्ट स्टाफ की ज़रूरत है, चाहे वो मेंटल ट्रेनर है, चाहे फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट है, स्ट्रेंथ एंड कंडीशनिंग कोच है. तो वो बेसिकली जो हेड कोच है उसी की रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि उसको देखना क्या क्या कब ज़रूरत है और किस को कैसे यूज़ करना है.
Thank you everyone. I think wonderful session and really appreciate all of you taking time. And I learned quite a bit interacting with each of you. And give them a big hand, actually, a big round of applause.
Can I please
Thank
request the entire panel to kindly come up front for a group picture? Thank you. And also requesting Mr. Prasant to kindly do the honors of presenting a small token of appreciation to the panel on our behalf. Now, we've established that clapping is good for our heart and for our brain to help us focus better. Thank you so much. Thank you.